Namaskaraha and welcome to our next session on Yoganishta Jivanam. So, in the last class, we talked about the different stages of yogic life and what the experience of human beings is in what the experience of human is in those stages, right? So, when we talked about when one's inner eyes open and one wishes to change one's life and starts to learn about what it is to live the life of a human being, to follow manava dharma as opposed to living the animal life, as opposed to following the pashu dharma, which majority of people do unknowingly, right? So when somebody comes to realize that they have an infinite desire within, which cannot be satisfied by the finite things of this world, then with the kripa of Paramapurusha, they come in contact with someone who can show them what the human life is all about. And from there begins the phase of Anushasanam, discipline, which one can also call as Yatamana. Yatamana stage, that's when they start trying. And this Yatamana stage is the most difficult phase, right? As we talked last class, so we can divide these phases into Anushasanam, Abhyasah and Subhava, or we can divide them into four: Yatamana, Vyatireka, Ekendriya, Vashikara. Ekendriya Vashikara. So either way, in the initial phase, one still has all kinds of animal desires, and one is used to running towards those things for ages. So we are accustomed to that, we are used to those things. And then one day the mind has realized that this is not the proper way, and that although those things are still quite enticing because of our old habits, the mind has come to realize this much, that it is not working, right? It is not working. All this sukha dukkha, sukha dukkha, sukha dukkha, I think it's just I get sukha, and then in the end I get, every time I get dukkha, right? I get sukha and then I get dukkha, I get dukkha, then I get sukha. So it's like constant cycle, and I don't want to do that anymore, right? I want this unending happiness. So at that point in time, human being starts on a new phase of life, and it involves putting the reins on the old habits and stopping those old habits which has been going on, right, in the direction of animal life, and then turning that now uh, you know uh, those old, it becomes difficult to give up those old habits. So, right, like the ocean liner, it doesn't turn easily. So you have a huge ship, and it takes days to turn its course in a different direction, right? So the human being who has been going in a particular direction for ages and lives, right, in that life, it to change the direction of the way the life is going is not going to be easy, right? So we talked about the example of cigarette smoking or alcohol drinking, and the things which are intoxicants, and how actually the habits of animal life, when somebody is living in a human frame, not only the alcohol and cigarettes, but so many things are intoxicants like coffee, tea, so many things. And when one leaves those things, then there is a phase of withdrawal, right? So some people think that this should be done gradually, but the matter of the fact is that this should not be done gradually, right? The recommendation over here is that it should be, the change in life should be done vigorously. Make the change right away, right? Stop the cigarette, stop the alcohol, stop the meat, stop whatever the habits are in a particular person's case, dairy products or whatever it may be, right? Everybody has the animal habits before they make the change into the yogic life. So whatever those habits are, there is a certain withdrawal phase where one longs for those things when one stops them, right? One longs for them and sometimes even has physical symptoms, but it should be done vigorously and gotten over quickly instead of continuing. Somebody is smoking cigarettes, a pack a day, they go down to half a pack. So that is not really progress, because the same bad habits are being encouraged, the same old bad habits. So we need to stop those bad habits completely, right? Get over it and move on with the next thing in the life, which is to get established in the new habits. So we talked about all of that, and we also talked about the bliss of spirituality, right? People get scared of doing this because they think that the whole life is going to be like that. It's just hell. They think the whole life is, I'm having to give up all the things I used to love. But actually they do not love those things, right? They had moha towards those things. They had attachment, and those things were intoxicating. They gave a temporary relief from the difficulties of life. Somebody has mental stress all day at work, and then they leave, and the first thing they want to do is to get something from the fast food shop on the street, so that they get a temporary relief. But it may give them a very temporary relief, but then it causes all kinds of difficulties like burning in the stomach and whatnot, right? It causes the body not to feel or function well. So the long-term impacts are bad. People are generally afraid of changing their lives, right? At least the lives that they have known, right? The lives that they've been leading, right? And what is unknown to them is scary because it's unknown, right? But they think it is not only scary, but also that it's not going to give them any pleasure. So my existing life was giving me pleasure, and this new life is not giving me pleasure, right? So and it gives tremendous pressure, right? Even though it gives tremendous pressure in the beginning, right? We talked about it, that in the end you do get bliss. It is a bliss. It gives ananda, that is happiness. Worldly happiness has no comparison to bliss, right? A bliss is a thing which is permanent. It goes on building and building and building for the entire life, right? Somebody is 80 years old, 90 years old, 100 years old. They're still doing sadhana, they're still experiencing, right? They're still experiencing and building far more bliss than they did when they were 30 years old. If they have been following the yogic life their whole life, right? So indeed, this is a blissful path. It is a path which is full of bliss, ananda, right? So when you start following the yogic life, let's say that somebody who is 20 years old and start following yogic life, then their life changes from what they have been doing. And so far they've been leading an animal life, and then when they switch over to the yogic life, the whole life becomes a bliss, right? Your life completely changes. The way you think, the way you eat, right? You're doing sadhana, you get completely inner peace, right? So the yogic life is very, very deep. It is a anandadayaka jivanam compared to the life that one was leading before the yogic life. There's no comparison. So this is indeed a path of bliss, right? So we talked about that when somebody is in the phase of discipline or anushasanam, or even the next phase of establishing a habit, right? That is I have to wait till it becomes my nature, right? When initially it is anushasanam, then abhyasa, then I have to wait till it becomes my swabhava, then after that it becomes blissful, right? So the thing that a very important thing is that people think that I have to use a lot of force to give up this, right? Even though initially you're using a little bit of force, but gradually what happens is that as you keep following this path, those things that you loved before, so much you loved, let's say that somebody loved rasagulla, right? But after implementing this yogic life, what happens is that after a period of time when you get established in this, even somebody places this rasagulla in front of you, you're like, you're not attracted to that. And it is very, very amazing. How come I was like so attracted to this thing and now I'm no longer attracted to it? It is happening very naturally. It is happening very naturally. It is all because of doing sadhana. When you're thinking about Paramapurusha, in concentrated thinking of Paramapurusha in sadhana, slowly these material things, attraction to them slowly wanes. It is very natural. And initially, even though you had put pressure to get rid of certain things, but eventually, gradually, when you get stabilized in this, everything is happening so naturally that you will be so surprised that, oh, how come is that everybody else is eating and I am like, I'm not even bothered about it. I'm not even attracted to that. I don't even really care about it. And I have a clear vision that, that is not good for me. Right? How did that change happen? It is such a beautiful change. How did that change happen? Right? So when somebody gets established in the path, when somebody is starting to change, they're in the phase of discipline, yatamana, and it is difficult, no doubt. But, right? So, so there are difficulties, in one has to face in the face of yatamana, but there are a lot of positive things as well. One should look forward for those positive things, right? That is how you move forward, right? So when we're talking about all the sadhana angas, right, like the ancillary things that actually help us, like the nirjal upvasa, satvik ahara, getting rid of salt, oil, sugar, getting rid of, if somebody is taking alcohol or cigarettes, meat, right, all the physical things, right, and you're doing daily exercise, getting proper sleep and rest, right? You have to do daily exercise. In addition to doing asanas, one has to do daily exercise, right? A vigorous exercise is every day one needs to do. Getting proper rest and sleep, all of these things should be done first before one learns sadhana, even because it completely changes the environment in which one is living, right? We're not talking about the physical environment, but we're talking about the environment in which the mind resides, not the external, but the environment in which the mind resides, that is one's body, right? The environment in which the mind resides is so important. It changes the entire vibration of one's existence. When one changes those things, gets rid of addictions in life, engages in the yoganishta jivanam, yogic life habits, right? So even in the face of yatamana or anushasana, there is bliss which one experiences, which one begins to experience, because the mind is becoming freed of that jail in which it was living by following the animal life, right? By following the animal life, that life was actually a jail, right? All those quick fixes, the mind is addicted to those things, and that's not, right? There's no freedom. It's like as if the mind is chained by all those things that you are attracted to, and because of the mind being chained, you cannot expand yourself, right? You cannot expand yourself unless you break open that chain. Your mind cannot expand, right? So one of the primary qualities of the mind is that it seeks expansion, right? It seeks expansion. So it is imperfect and it is trying to go towards perfection. The mind which is imperfect is trying to go towards perfection, and that is expansion, right? That expansion, the mind gets a lot more freedom to do that when it is engaging in the practice of yogic life, right? So the nirjal upvasa, satvik ahara, asanas, practicing asanas, all those things. So the next point is that one can say that there are so many things to change and so many things to do actually, right? Actually, when you actually count them, even though it appears like so many things, when you actually count them, it's not that many, right? So it's not that many. One can easily implement that, right? We are living in the family. We are not not going to some mountain and taking sannyasa. We are living in the family, right? And we are doing all these changes, and we're living the life of a yogi, right? To live the life of a yogi, you don't need to go to the Himalayas, right? You can lead the life of a yogi right here in the house, right? So it depends on the dedication one has, right? We need full-time dedication for yogic life, right? We need full-time dedication for yogic life. So those sannyasis who give up everything and go to the Himalayas, right? So that is not what we are talking about. We are talking about whether it is a grahastha or somebody who's not married, doesn't matter, right? If it is a grahastha, then they have two families. They have their small family and they have a big family, right? They have responsibility towards the small family and also towards the big family, the society, right? They have to fulfill the responsibility for both. For somebody who is not married and is dedicated to the yogic life, he has only one family, and that is the universal family. Somebody who is married has two families, the universal family and the small family, and both of them are very important, and attending to both can be more difficult, no doubt. But one thing to be emphasized is that right, it is not that the sannyasi is going to live in some cave in the Himalayas. That is not what is recommended in yogic life, right? Whether one is a grahastha or sannyasi, both live in the society. So in that way, both have to deal with the same challenges. Actually, manav dharma is the same. Both people, whether it is a sannyasi or grahastha, both of them have an infinite desire and have the same tools at their disposal for moving towards the goal of the infinite, right? So here the main point is that how are we to do that? How are we to live in the society? Like when everybody around us is leading an animal life, how are we to live in the society? So this is actually the question. How are we to live in the society? How are we to live the yogic life when everybody is involved with the intoxicants and the quick fixes in animal life? So that is the key question. Here the point is that the problem is the same whether it is somebody is sannyasi or grahastha. The problem is essentially the same. Both are living in the society, both are surrounded by people. Somebody who is a sannyasi, their duty is to help engage with the society and help people shift over from animal life to human life, right? So they are also engaging with all those people who are following the animal life, and means the sannyasi are dealing with a large number of people, right, who do not follow the path and they are degenerating themselves. So they work with them and they try to bring them into sanmarga, right? So that is how the sannyasis lead, right? So somebody needs to get established in yogic life, right? There are challenges. So whether it is sannyasi or grahastha, there are challenges for both of them. We are to live in the society, right? And yet in certain sense outside of it also. So this is a very important point. So we live in the society, but we are not going to be engaging in crude activities. So we are not going to do those crude things that other people are doing, right? We engage with the society on our terms as followers of yogic life. That is to say, we are not going to get together with people and gossip with them about useless subjects. We will get together with all people, but we will do so to talk about the difference between animal life and human life, inspire about leading the human life, teaching about manava dharma. So that is the point, right? That these are the terms of engaging with the society. These are the terms with which I will engage with the society. Whether somebody is in our home, somebody is outside in the general society, it's the same thing, right? So this is such an important point. So when we engage with anybody for that matter, we will engage with them with regarding talking about the yogic life and encouraging other people also to follow to engage in this path of bliss, right? Not for doing gupshup, not for doing chit chat. We will not engage with people just to do chit chat, right? Time is very precious, so our conversation with other people will be purposeful, will be meaningful, will be for encouraging other people to follow the manava dharma, right? So we will not be going to social gathering, we will not be going to different events. We will go there only if there is an opportunity for teaching what is manava dharma. Otherwise we will not engage in those kind of activities, right? So the relationship which we have with those in our home, with our children, with our siblings, with our parents, fathers or mothers, all these relationships are not permanent relationships, which we have to understand. Whatever relationship we have inside the family, which we feel so close, right? My relationship with my mother, my father, my brother, my sister, my husband, my children, these are not permanent relationships, right? And the relationship that you have with the society is also equally not permanent, right? So there is no difference. The relationship that you have with your family, even though you feel it is permanent, and the relationship you have with the external you feel is not permanent, but in fact both of them are not permanent. Both of them are not permanent relationships, right? It's like a train, it's like a journey in the train. You meet so many people, you engage with them for some time, and then they get down when their station comes and they go. So exactly it is the same even in the family. You engage with people for a certain period of time. After that point, they get down in the station where they have to go, and after that your connection will be limited, or it will not even be there, right? So life is very short. Life is very short. It is essentially like a train journey where we are all going together, and each of them get down in their station, right? So the only permanent relationship that we have in this life, as that any human being has, is with Paramapurusha. He is the bandhu, right? He is the one who is tied with us, tied together with us since before our birth up until our death. He is a permanent relationship. Everybody else is a temporary relationship. Everybody, whether we are married with the person or whether it is somebody who we work with in the job, everybody is a temporary relationship, right? So this is like the example of the train compartment. Everybody gets on the train and sits in the compartment, right? And then they, in the train you make acquaintances with people, you get so connected with somebody, you talk and you have a good time together in the compartment. But then we all know that it's not going to be permanent. Somebody gets off at one station, somebody else gets off at another station, somebody gets off at another station, right? And they don't start crying when somebody gets off the station, because they knew that this was not going to be a permanent relationship, right? But when it comes to the family members, people get befooled into thinking that the relationship they have with their family members are permanent, but they're not permanent. It is the same. Just as being in the train compartment, it is exactly the same. Somebody got on the train, you're on with them, you're with them for a certain period of time, and then they get off the train, and it is essentially the same thing with the family members, right? Somebody met somebody at the age of 25, they got married, they lived for 30 years together, or say 40 years or 50 years, and then one of them died, one of them left them, right? Something happened. So it's not a permanent relationship, right? Similarly, even with children, sometimes the parents leave the children and they go away, or the children sometimes die before the parents, right? Even then the journey is not permanent. So we are in this world with everybody else for a temporary phase, right? We know it, but we do we really know it? We hear it and we say, yeah, I understand, but do we really understand? No, we don't understand, right? So we should understand it in this way, that it is like a train compartment, and that way we should interact with people on the condition that it is based on manav dharma and not on animal life. That is the point. So if we do that, we establish that environment, then we don't need to live in the Himalayas, right? We can live in the society and live according to our terms. In that situation, we are creating a sattvic environment, we are creating a sattvic vatavarana in which to live. And we know that we have to do atma moksha and jagat hit, right? We have to do jagat hit, that everybody who is listening and who is in the class, they have to think about how I can do jagat hit, right? It's very important. Without doing jagat hit, your mind is not going to expand, right? So we if there are people who are alcoholics, we will work with them, we'll help them to get rid of alcohol, right? If there are people who are not following yogic life, we'll work with them and make them follow the yogic life, right? So if we are helping alcoholics, doesn't mean we are going to sit and drink with them, right? If you are helping people who are following animal dharma, which we also followed some time back, right? It doesn't mean that we will also follow the animal dharma to help them. So the point is that we are giving an upama as an example, representative example, that if we are going to interact with somebody who is an alcoholic, we are going to do on the terms that with the purpose and intent of helping them quit alcohol, and not for the purpose of going to sit with them and drink alcohol. That is the example. So when we are interacting with people, trying to help them, right, we know what we have to do, and we will not follow the pashu dharma to help them, right? So that is the distinction. So we interact with people on the terms that we have established, and if they are not interested in what we are talking, then we are not going to interact with them, right? So if they want to sit down for a meal of chicken, then we are not going to sit down with them. If they are wanting to sit down for a meal of dairy products, then we're not going to sit down with them, right? We're not going to do that, because we know what sattvic ahar is, we know what is good for us, right? So we are not going to do that, but we are willing to help others, but on our condition, on our terms. We are not going to follow the pashu dharma. That is the most important thing, right? So these are the common examples. Everybody has to face these things. Last week somebody had asked this question that I think sometime back, that how are we supposed to, this is actually I don't recall if somebody asked, but this is generally the question that we hear, right? That how are we supposed to manage in a house, right? How are we supposed to manage in a house that other people are not following the yogic life, they're not interested, and only I'm interested in yogic life? How am I supposed to handle this situation, right? So the point is here is that you are interested in this path, you are interested in becoming a human being, and you are happy in doing this. So you will engage with other family members, you are happy to engage with all of them, but only on your terms, right? That is very important. Only on your terms. Somebody wants to sit and watch some crude things on the television, then I'm not going to sit there with them, right? I'm happy to sit with them when they're not doing those things, when they're not watching television. But if they are going to sit watching television, watching some crude things, then I'm not going to sit with them. I don't want to see anything on television, right? I don't want to see any crude thing on television, right? So essentially, why should we have a television in the house, right? In my house I don't have a television, so what is the need for having a television in the house, right? Television is essentially inviting all those crude things, right? Those advertisements and all those different things that they're broadcasting, right? So we don't need all of that. So the point is that we are living in the society, but we are establishing our own terms. What are the terms of living in the society? That we will interact with the society to the extent that anybody and everybody from the society is ready to interact with us on human terms, to learn what it is to lead a human life, right? There are lots of people who are interested in that, right? Those are the people we are going to interact with. Somebody is interested, we have all the time in the world. Somebody is not interested, then we're not going to interact with them. So those are the terms in which we have to work, right? So whether it is inside somebody's house or outside, right? So if one's eyes are open and they're very sincere, right, then they have to be clear on what terms they're going to engage with the society, right? So if people who are not married, right, if they're not married and they're there in this path, then they have to be very careful about who they are going to marry, right? If you're in the yogic life before you got married, then you have to be very careful in terms of how you select your life partner, because we want somebody who is interested in the yogic life. Otherwise, what is the point of getting married to somebody who is going to pull you down, right? We have to be very, very careful about that. So who we are going to live with. So right, it's a very, very important question, and the choice is very important. So because we cannot just leave the house, it is a place we are residing. So those with whom we are living, it is very important that they should be interested, right? So if the change in one's life happened after one got married, then it is the duty to try the best that one can to bring other people on this path, right? So it should be done with a certain degree of strictness, right? Somebody who married somebody who is not a vegetarian, then the later in the life one of the two became vegetarian, right? Then for the other person, they have to be very, very careful. They have to be very strict, right? That they're not going to have any animal products in the house, right? Then if they want to do those things, then the other person have to do it outside the house. Somebody wants to drink alcohol, they want to smoke cigarettes, they want to watch crude things, it's fine. Then they can do it outside the house. It's not going to be done in this house. So that is a way you have to establish certain standard, right? A certain standard has to be established. So that is very important, right? So eating proper food is beneficial to everybody in the house, so it should be done. We are not going to engage in a physical battle over this, right? But using psychology and explaining to them, right? Everybody is conscious about health these days, right? So one has to guide them, right? So if you're dealing with children, we have to guide them. Children are ready to learn. So if you're dealing with children, then one has to explain to them, right? So the milk of the cows is for the baby cows, not for human beings. You have to show them the videos about what happens to the cows who are living in captivity under human beings, right? So these cows don't live in in an uplifting environment, right? It's very terrible. So anybody who is drinking milk from those cows which are living in that kind of horrible environment is actually participating in himsa. He is participating in the suffering and the hell life for the cows, right? So we have to educate everybody around us. So the point is that we live in the society, yet outside of the crude vibrations that people create in the society, right? So we have to choose the conditions in which we are going to interact with people in the society. So this is very, very important. We will engage with everybody, but on our terms, on human terms. We are not going to engage where people are engaged in animal activities. We are not going to engage with them, right? We are not going to engage in crude talk. We are not going to engage in useless gossip. Not going to sit there and listen to it, right? So every moment of life should be uplifting. We are willing and ready to engage with anybody and everybody as long as the manner of interaction is uplifting for everybody and is not degenerating. Right? So we have to engage with the society, but it has to be uplifting. So we can go running with people, we can practice Nirjala Upvasa, we can do asanas together, we can do all kinds of things. We can talk about yogic life together, right? These are the boundaries of my willingness to interact with people. Anybody who is ready for yogic life, then we are also ready, right? So this is how we should live a life, and we should not waste any minute, right? Every minute is precious. We should not waste our life in doing unnecessary chit chat, right? Talking about useless things, right? So most of the people in the society are leading animal life. So when one interacts with them, one will either become degenerated by going down to their level, or one will uplift them by bringing them up to your level, right? So before one interacts with anybody, one has to think, am I going to get degenerated by interacting with this person, or am I going to uplift this person? If I can uplift them, then I will absolutely interact with them. If not, I am not going to get negatively affected by my interacting with them. Then I don't interact with them, right? I don't interact with them. So that is how right, we have to lead the yogic life, right? That is how we have to lead the yogic life. So so this is what I actually wanted to talk today. Any questions?
No, but just
yeah. Okay, so we will actually continue from here. Let's take so we were actually talking about what is the aim of humanity, right? So we know that Paramapurusha created this Srishti. He created this Srishti because it was a Leela. It is a Leela for him. He wanted every Jivatma to merge with him, right? So he wanted to go from crude, from subtle to crude, and then from crude to subtle, right? And in that process, when the jivas were created at 6 o'clock, after due to the impact of the tamo guna on the Kshiti Tattva, then the jivas started emerging, and eventually he wanted the jivas to go from the crude to the subtle. So eventually he wanted every jiva to merge into himself. So this whole Srishti is a kalpana of Paramapurusha. It's a kalpana of Paramapurusha. And in that kalpana, at 10 o'clock human beings emerged, and he gave the special opportunity for the human beings to move forward from 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock by doing sadhana, right? He wanted the human beings who have a more advanced mind to progress forward and merge into that Paramapurusha, right? Merge into that Paramapurusha. So ultimately that is the goal of human life, right? So that is why he created this universe. And so we also said that that the human beings, they can merge, the unit consciousness can merge with the supreme Saguna Brahma, right? Or it can merge with the Nirguna Brahma. The goal of the creation is that the unit consciousness merge with the Nirguna Brahma, right? If the unit consciousness merges with the Saguna Brahma, then it does not fulfill the purpose of creation, right? So ultimately Paramapurusha wants everybody to merge with that Nirguna Brahma, right? So if they merge with the Saguna Brahma, then what happens is that they get you know they become the samagri for the further Srishti, right? So which even though that particular jiva doesn't have punarjanma, but they become the samagri for the future Srishti. So they become the unit mind merges with the cosmic mind, and that from that cosmic mind the Srishti emerges, right? From that cosmic mind the Panchabhutas come, and then from there the jivas again emerge. So it becomes a further a cycle, even though that particular jiva is actually doesn't have a punarjanma, but it is becoming a samagri for Srishti. So Paramapurusha does not want that. What he wants that every unit consciousness get moksha, not mukti. Even though mukti is also a very elevated thing. It is not a small thing, it's an elevated thing, but he wants moksha for every unit consciousness. So the third paragraph is a critically important paragraph, so let us actually read one more time and then we can proceed forward.
the wish of this supreme qualified, the wish of the qualified supreme entity is to obtain merger with the non-qualified entity or the supreme rank for every one of its units. This is not fulfilled the merger of unit consciousness with it either through the effort of doing sadhana or the natural course sadhana, intuitional practice, or in the natural course of the flow of the thought waves of the qualified entity. This merger with the qualified supreme entity is termed mukti, which means freedom from the movement of the thought waves of the supreme from the creation. This mukti of freedom is not emancipation in reality. Unit consciousness merges out of the subtle qualified supreme entity in its thought waves and re-enters the Sri Chakra or Brahma Chakra cycle of creation or cosmic cycle, returning again to the path of emancipation. So such a mukti is not complete emancipation, since the intention of the qualified supreme entity to achieve the non-qualified status from each of these units has not been fulfilled. So the wish of the supreme entity, qualified supreme entity, is to obtain merger with the non-qualified entity or supreme rank for every one of its units. This is not fulfilled just on the merger of unit consciousness with it by doing sadhana or in the natural course of the flow of the thought waves of the qualified entity. This merger with the qualified supreme entity is termed mukti, which means freedom from the movement of the thought waves of the supreme from the creation. This mukti of freedom is not an entire emancipation actually, in reality. It is only the mukti. The innate consciousness merges out of the subtle qualified entity in its thought phase and re-enters the real emancipation is re-enters the Sri Chakra, and again it goes into the cycle of creation only. And so it is only just mukti is only a complete emancipation. It is only since the intention of the qualified supreme entity to achieve the non-qualified status for each of its units has not been. So this essentially only leads to the recreation of into that cycle, cycle of creation, but it does not go and merge into the non-qualified entity. So this is only mukti and not moksha. And
what is the non-qualified entity, Bhagini?
Non-qualified entity is the supreme entity.
Yeah, the Nirguna Brahma.
Nirguna Brahma, which has no qualities of its own, actually. But the qualified entity, we are acted upon by the Prakriti to do and to go into the, that is to achieve mukti and then go into the Brahma Chakra to go into the cycle of creation. That's what is said.
Nicely said, Bhagini. So at 10 o'clock, when somebody got a human mind and a human body, and when their inner eyes open, they sit down to do sadhana and follow a full yogic life in full form. So the mind has no shape, and when it begins to take the shape of Paramapurusha, when the mind begins to ideate on Paramapurusha, right? When the mind begins to ideate on Paramapurusha, then it becomes like Paramapurusha, right? So when the mind ideates on Saguna Brahma through sadhana, through the sadhana of the cosmic mind, right? So what happens is that the qualified consciousness is the cosmic mind, is the Bhumaman, right? It's the cosmic mind, and within that cosmic mind, this entire Srishti, right, is there in the chitta of the Bhumaman. By doing sadhana of the Saguna Brahma, what happens is that the unit mind becomes more and more and more and more like the Saguna Brahma, that it cannot remain apart from that, and the unit mind merges into the cosmic mind. So then when this happens, at this point the samskaras are all completely finished. There are no samskaras remaining in the mind, and the samskaras are the manifestation of the bandini shakti, that is a bondage, and that bondage is completely finished, right? And there is really nothing to keep the mind in bondage, and the Saguna Brahma is also without limitation, means it's infinite, right? that Saguna Brahma is different from the Nirguna Brahma because of the gunas of Prakriti. The gunas of the Prakriti impact Saguna Brahma. That is why it is different from the Nirguna Brahma. The Nirguna Purusha is one, whether it is Saguna or Nirguna, but it is the different hat that same person is wearing, right? The same person, the same entity which is having is Saguna and it is Nirguna, right? In some places it is Saguna, in some places it's Nirguna. So what happens is that when the unit mind merges into the Saguna Brahma, then that is actually called Mukti. Mukti means up until the point of Mukti, the sanskaras were pushing the person into rebirth, right? Which was keeping the mind in its form. The sanskaras kept the mind as a limited mind, and it forced the jivatma to take rebirth with the unit mind due to the samskaras, due to the abhukta pratikriya. But when by doing sadhana, when the unit mind takes the form of the cosmic mind, then those samskaras are all finished, right? And that is actually called as mukti. And mukti is not a small thing. It cannot be minimized, right? Although it has been described that it is not the ultimate goal of human life, that is true, but mukti cannot be minimized, right? Mukti is a very elevated thing. It is a big thing. Getting mukti is not a small thing. If somebody doesn't get mukti, then they are going to take rebirth, either as a human being or as a cow or as a dog or a horse or a plant or a stone, depending on the quality of the mind at the time of death, right? So when somebody gets mukti, the cycle of rebirth is finished, and that is not a small thing. It is really a big thing, and that is why it's called mukti. Mukti is a freedom from rebirth, and the mind is no longer going to have a unit form. It becomes cosmic. The unit mind becomes cosmic. It became cosmic, right? So the present existence is finished, and the unit mind will never take rebirth, right? But what we have to understand is that merging into the cosmic mind, merging into Saguna Brahma, right, means that that Purusha is being used, out of which the Srishti is created, right? Out of which it becomes when the unit mind merges into the cosmic mind, then it becomes the samagri for Srishti. When something is part of Saguna Brahma, and from Saguna Brahma Srishti emerges, so then that becomes a samagri for the Srishti, right? And that is not the intent of the creation, right? The intent of the creation is that the unit consciousness merge with the Nirguna Purusha. That is the purpose, so that there is no further Srishti. But when a unit mind merges with the Saguna Brahma, then what happens? It becomes a samagri for the future Srishti. Just like the water goes in the river and then goes into the ocean, it gets evaporated in the air and then becomes cloud, and then it rains into the river and then goes into the ocean. So it's like a cycle. It's just getting recycling. That recycling is happening with water, right? It merges into the ocean, then evaporates, goes into the cloud. So it's essentially a cycle. It's in the same way, the consciousness of the Purusha, out of which we are made, which was bound up by the sanskaras, is no longer bound up. So it merges into the cosmic mind, and now it has become the samagri. So that is what happens when mukti happens, right? You just became the ingredients. Just like the river emerges into the ocean, now evaporates into the cloud. So now you are going to become the cosmic mind, and the portion of you becomes the Akasha Tattva, and then a portion of you became Akasha Tattva, Vayu Tattva, Agni Tattva, Jala Tattva, Kshiti Tattva, and so on, right? So that is different from taking rebirth, right? Rebirth is something different. When you have samskaras and you take rebirth as a human body, right? As a human or as a cow or whatever, right? That is different from becoming the samagri for the Akasha Tattva, Vayu Tattva, Agni Tattva, and then further on, right? So that is the difference, and that is then when you merge with the cosmic mind, that is mukti, right? That is also not a small thing. It is not like taking rebirth, right? In case of the rebirth, what happens is that the unit mind goes on taking rebirth, in the sense it is getting attached to a new body, right? One cycle of birth and death is over, then the unit mind waits for getting an appropriate body, and it takes an appropriate body, and again it goes on that cycle. That is the cycle of janma marana, right? But in the case of mukti, you're merging into the saguna brahma and you're becoming part of the srishti in a new form. The old you is gone, right? That is mukti, and that is not a small thing. It is a big thing, right? It is really a big thing. Okay, we will actually read the last paragraph. Bhagini.
Ma'am, yeah, Bhagini,
Ah,
I have two doubts in this. Okay.
yeah. Mm.
Right. I understood what is mukti. So the final of the units getting merged into the Nirguna Brahma will be, what to say, the end of some yuga only, no? Then only everything can merge, no?
Not everything. Not everything. We are not talking about everything merging into the Paramapurusha. We are talking about every unit consciousness. It merges into Paramapurusha through its own cheshta, through its effort by doing sadhana.
No. That is not my question. Now, say one person is attaining mukti. Okay, not moksha, mukti. And going into the Saguna Brahma for recreation only. Okay. What will be they recreated as?
They will be, yeah, they will become part of Akasha Tattva. From there they will become Vayu Tattva. From there they become Jala Tattva. From there they will become Agni Tattva. And then they will become Kshiti Tattva. And from Kshiti Tattva, new life emerges.
Okay. New life emerges.
So yeah, they just become the ingredient for it, and exactly which part of that ingredient we cannot tell. They just become the entire ingredient for the new jiva.
Okay. So till then the unit consciousness will be there only.
No, unit consciousness is gone. That unit consciousness, so the cosmic mind. Okay. So that is actually a good question. So what you're saying is that the unit mind merges into the cosmic mind, and the jivatma merges into Paramatma.
Okay.
No, so in the Saguna Brahma only, I'm thinking here that the unit mind merges into the cosmic mind, and the jivatma merges into the Saguna Brahma.
Saguna Brahma. Okay. And that unit consciousness again will go for some creation in some form, isn't it?
Yes, that unit consciousness, it becomes a samagri for new creation.
New creation.
Yeah, that unit consciousness now becomes the cosmic mind.
Cosmic mind. Okay.
Because we know, right, in the Srishti Chakra, from the Saguna Brahma, the cosmic mind is created from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock. So when the Jivatma merges into the Saguna Brahma, then it becomes the samagri for further creation.
Okay. So in that case, everything to go into that is, there should not be any creation to go into the Nirguna Brahma. It should be the end of the yuga or something like that, no?
No. See, the creation is always going on. So it doesn't mean, the creation is going to end. The Srishti is a continuous process. It is always going on. There is Srishti, Sthiti, Laya. The Laya that we're talking about is not the complete stoppage of Srishti. So there will be Laya in different parts of the Srishti cycle. There might be in some parts something may get destroyed, something may get created. So that kind of Laya is there. But completely Srishti will come to a standstill. That kind of situation is never there. Srishti is always there. It is always going on.
Okay. Then at what point of time will they go into that Nirguna Brahma stage?
So the Nirguna Brahma stage is by doing sadhana and merging with that. When the mind gets dissolved in Paramapurusha, the mind is no longer there. The mind completely dissolves into Paramapurusha, and there are no samskaras. The mind is not there. Then the Jivatma merges into Paramatma.
Okay.
The mind is, as long as there is the mind, then if there is a mind, then you get rebirth. When the mind merges with the Saguna Brahma, then you become the Samagri. But when the mind completely dissolves in the Nirguna Purusha, then this moksha.
Moksha. Okay.
So it is like just like we say there is a doll of the salt, and when you throw it in the ocean, how the salt completely dissolves in the ocean, like that the mind gets completely dissolved in the Nirguna Purusha.
Purusha. Okay.
And Jivatma merges with Paramatma, with the Nirguna Purusha.
Okay. I'll read the next paragraph.
Yeah, please.
Freedom from the bondage of Prakriti is the merger with the non-qualified supreme entity or attainment of the supreme rank, and that is termed moksha. I think I got an answer to my question. I didn't read this, but I was just thinking. Merger with the non-qualified Brahma relieves one from the influences of the supreme Prakriti, and she, not being able to influence that, will be incapable of dragging one into the creation. The unit will thus be relieved of its journeys through the creation, fulfilling the purpose or the intention of the qualified supreme entity. Hence, the aim of human beings is not to merge with the qualified supreme entity and obtain mukti. It is higher than that. The aim is achievement of the supreme rank, that is, obtaining moksha or Kivalaya mukti, or correct? Kvalaya mukti.
Kaivalya mukti.
Kaivalya mukti. Okay. So now, this paragraph, I almost answered my question actually. So freedom from the bondage of Prakriti. I mean, when Prakriti is no longer able to show her bondage, then it is the merger with the non-qualified supreme entity, or the and it is termed as moksha. That is, attainment of the supreme rank is termed as moksha. So merger with the non-qualified Brahma relieves one from the influence of the supreme Prakriti, and that Prakriti will no longer be able to influence to drag that into the creation. The unit will be thus relieved of all its journeys. It will not go through the creation once more, and it will fulfill the promise of this qualified supreme entity. What the qualified supreme entity wanted, the unit to completely merge into the non-qualified entity. So now the aim of the human beings is not to merge with the qualified supreme entity. It is higher than that. That is, it should achieve the supreme rank, and that is achieving of moksha or Kaivalya mukti. What is the meaning of that? Kaivalya, actually.
Kaivalya means liberation.
Okay.
Kaivalya, the moksha is called as Kaivalya. Kevalasya bhavaha Kaivalyam means
Kevalasya bhavaha.
Kevalasya bhavaha means just being the Nirguna Purusha, just Nirguna Purusha, nothing else.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, nicely said, Bhagini. So I think we are clear on what the mukti is. Mukti is not an ordinary thing, and also punarjanma is not happening in mukti, right? And in mukti there is no more you, right? The only qualification here is that the Purusha out of which you were made, that Purusha goes into the pot of the Saguna again, but not in the form of you. That individual you is finished. You no longer have the samskaras. Everybody who has the vyaktitva, that person's personality is made of their samskaras, their abhukta pratikriya, right? That conglomeration of their sanskaras is what makes a personality. That personality is completely finished. when somebody gets reborn as a stone, that stone is not like getting mukti in the sense that stone. So right, like for instance, even if you became a stone, it is not in the same form that you were before, right? So you just become the samagri for the srishti again, right? So if somebody became very crudified by their life as a human being, that very crude life that they generated themselves, they become stone in the next life. That stone is a different type of stone. It has bondages of samskaras, not only but when you become the samagri for the srishti, then you don't have that bondages. You don't have that bondages, right? Whatever phase one gets rebirth into, if somebody is getting rebirth into somewhere on the pratisanchar dhara, right? So getting, that means they have the sanskaras. With the sanskaras they get the rebirth, right? When you're getting mukti, your complete personality is completely finished. You don't have any sanskaras. Mukti is also very meaningful, but the ultimate aim of humanity is something even beyond that, right? It is even beyond that, right? And right, so in moksha what happens is that your samskaras are all finished, and also your unit mind is also completely finished. There is no unit mind anymore. The unit mind is not merging with the saguna brahma. The unit mind is completely finished, completely dissolves in parama purusha, and the unit consciousness, the jivatma, merges into that nirguna purusha. So that is what is moksha, and by doing sadhana, that leads to the nirguna brahma, and one ultimately ends up merging and getting moksha with that nirguna purusha, right? That is completely merger into the ocean of shuddha purusha, which is the goal of human life, right? And that is very, very beautiful. It's a very beautiful thing. So yeah, so the mukti, in a way, in a way that you can say that moksha is permanent. Mukti, when we say, we can't say it's temporary, but what we can say is that you just become part of the srishti samagri. So from that perspective we can say it is temporary. Okay, so very nice, Bhagini. Any questions at this point?
Right now no questions. Afterwards, when I think about this topic and get a question, I'll definitely ask. Now as I was going through your this one, no, I had some questions, so I asked you immediately. I'll go over this, and otherwise
sure. Okay, very good, Bhagini. So I just wanted to also take this moment, just a moment, to clarify a question on something that was said in one of the prior classes. It was said that stuti or prarthana done with a selfish motive is bad and not to be done, but otherwise stuti or prarthana can be done. That is what was said, I think was said by Chandrasekhar Mahodaya. But actually speaking, right, stuti or prarthana is always done with 100% selfish motive, right? Whenever somebody is doing stuti or prarthana, they're always always wanting something from parama purusha, right? So there is no question of if it is done with selfish motive. So stuti or prarthana is always done with a motive, always people wanting something, right? Parama purusha knows what we need and what has to be done, and there is no need to remind him about anything. We know that. And stuti or prarthana is always done with a selfish motive, and for that reason it should not be done. And there is no element of serving parama purusha with such stuti or prarthana. It is purely 100% selfish, right? And so therefore there is no question of if it is selfish or not. It is selfish, right? It is selfish. Okay, okay, that I wanted to clarify. So I think we will actually end the session over here if there are no questions. So this Karapatra has come to an end. We can take up the next Karapatra in the next class.
Dhanyavadah.
Dhanyavadah, Bhagini. Namaskaraः.